This is Stars and Scopes with your friend Uma, updated every new and full moon with guidance based on planetary transits in the current sky and extra support from tarot. For accuracy, take a look at your rising sign first if you know it, and do feel free to listen to your sun, moon and rising if you'd like the full picture. If you're interested in your birth chart, check out the readings page at umaruby.com, and if you'd like to support the work, head over to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and you can buy me a coffee. Finally, if you're a visual learner, look up Uma Ruby Tarot on YouTube and you can watch and learn. Okay, let's take a look. Hello Leo and Leo rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the new moon in Libra, happening on Monday the 26th of September at 7:54 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So as far as that black night of manifestation, I suggest that the night of the 25th will be the perfect time to sit with your hopes and dreams and wishes for future development. Now, Libra rules over your third house of communication, of the village, and your siblings, or perhaps folks that feel like siblings, your localized environment, folks that you see on a semi-regular basis. So if you think about it in terms of the megaphone, perhaps rather than the amplified speaker, you know, you've got the message that you're wishing to give forward, and that reaches a certain distance. So there's an intimacy to the third house, I think, which we can work with. And for Libra to live there for you, Leo, is perhaps a way of explaining that your message, that your voice works for equality and works for liberty and justice and works to unify the polarity of life. Does that make sense? So think about the essence of Libra, put really simply, would be just so. It would be to unify the polarity of energy. So we have light, we have dark. We know that they are connected, that everything is the same. The polarization of matter doesn't separate. Make sense? So there's I'm looking at your tarot cards here and there's a lot to discuss. So I pulled some tarot cards in the intro of this video, which I'll be working from and giving you a lovely reading of hope for. But let's talk about Mercury for the moment. If we're talking about messages, third house, communication, Mercury would be a great planet to zone in on as well. And considering that Mercury is in its retrograde position, so it's left Libra and it's gone back into Virgo. So Virgo for you is the second house, I believe. And the ideas that are coming as far as your talents and your ability to access material abundance and to stack it up and to grow in a material plane, they've been at the tip of your tongue to communicate. And then in Mercury in its retrograde has gone back into Virgo, back into the second, to think things over a little bit. I have the tarot and I have justice here for you, which is Virgo and Libra. I also have the King of Pentacles, which I would put down to your second house. The King of Pentacles is the master of the second house, I would say. And the Eight of Wands, which is messages. So perhaps this is where we can focus this reading on. And this is perhaps energy that can inform your manifestation for the third. The way that you're communicating and the way that you're expressing yourself to your village, to your localized community, is has a relationship with your material abundance. It has a commonality there, and a kind of, from what we can learn in the second and what we develop in our mind's eye about perhaps potential restraint too. That's a very interesting quality to have in the second. There's a diligence there, there's a going over, there's a sort of facts and figures measuring of that energy. So what have you been learning, and what have you been learning about your potential to accrue abundance, which is perhaps disparate to what you thought that was? The opposite sign of Virgo is Pisces, is the 8th house. This is where we had that last lunation, that last full moon. There was a lot to release at that full moon. And the 8th can sometimes talk about the way that we are financially bonded to other souls. It can really talk about inheritance, or it can talk about taxes, it can talk about dowry, all of those sorts of kind of entrenched bonding systems of finance. And in a lot of ways, in regard to relying on the other for that security, for that financial security. You were invited to release at the Pisces full moon. You were invited to let go of some of that worry, potentially. Pisces can often worry too much about the future because they can almost see the future in some way. But at this full moon, you were invited to let that go. You were invited to let that go, as the 8th house wants us to do. The 8th house is about release, grief and release. So now that we're here at the new moon in Libra, which is your 3rd house, your communication skills, what is Mercury trying to communicate to you? What messages have you been receiving that require your 2nd house manifestation of a month ago? There's a going over required there. There's messages perhaps that need to be reabsorbed as far as your access to creating material wealth, and indeed what you're going to use that for. I would go as far as to say that to have Virgo rule your 2nd house shows the incredible potential for healing in your talents. There's something that you're, if you're, this is specifically for my Leo risings, the expression that you're encouraged to explore and achieve in this lifetime, the message that you're putting forward of self-expression and of vitality and vibrancy and leading from the heart, shows the portal is open for you in your 2nd house. There is great material abundance to be achieved in ways that don't rely so much on the other. If we're looking at this timeline of this year, you're being invited to let go of some of that reliance on the abundance of other people, or the designation from other people in regard to your finances. So this is going to inform the way that you're speaking out, the way that you're going to communicate, and the way that you're going to communicate in the sense of justice and equality. There's a really lovely sentiment for a Leo rising to explore and give forward in terms of their voice. Their voice, when put to good use, when put to the benefit of the other, to find right relationship, to find a balance of energy. Leo, of course, is incredibly, as Aries might be as well, incredibly, it highlights the self-expression very brightly. in their communication, it's a reminder. It's almost like a mirror reflecting the sunshine of the identity, reflecting the sunshine of the ego back to the other by example. So this would be a really great lunation to perhaps, and with the Mercury in retrograde position, these messages, this is a great time for you to reconsider how it is that you're expressing yourself and what it is that you're trying to say and what it is that you're willing to expand upon at this new moon, and get back to the drawing board in some ways, or reread the draft before you hit publish. I think that that's probably a really great message for you at this Libra new moon, is to remember that connection of polarity. Absolutely. I, the other, we are connected, but remember the balance that needs to come into that and the equal weight that needs to be placed upon that to achieve a lovely Libran balance. And a true equality is that of a centeredness, equal exchange, equal weight. So as much as your soul is being encouraged to thrive and to grow and to expand and to shine and to glow and all of those vibrant, bejeweled things that a Leo soul is encouraged to achieve in this lifetime, and to really go for it and to be unabashed or unashamed and not tethered down by any sense of self-consciousness or worry about vanity. That's something that you can just put out of your mind completely, Leo. But go over how you're expressing that, how you're talking about this, what language are you using, and how are you including the other in this conversation? How are you including the facets, the foundations of justice and equality and balance and beauty and truth and connected polarity? How is all of that language being expressed through you? And what needs to be gone over? What messages from your Virgo side, from your second house, your talent at opening that portal and that channel that comes from you? What Virgo can teach you about the edit? What Virgo can teach you about, and it's not, I was reluctant to say restraint because I wouldn't suggest that. I wouldn't put that on you, Leo. It's not important. But what Virgo can teach you about the edit and about the order of translation. This is an interesting thing that's coming up for me now. I'm just getting this message now. There's a difference between translation and transcription, if that makes any sense. I think just a message, and I don't know if it's going to hit home, it doesn't have to, but there is a big difference between translation, the idea of receiving a message and of absorbing that information, and then, to the best of your knowledge, proffering that through a lens of having understood it completely, as opposed to transcription, which is almost a computer can transcribe a message. A computer can quite literally put down messages that have been fed to them. Does that make any sense? I wonder. I apologize if that's a bit muddy. This whole reading has a muddiness to it, but maybe that's the Virgo energy. I'm giving myself excuses here, but I hope that this makes sense to you, because I think that that's a really important thing, Leo, for you to really ruminate on and to meditate on, is that difference between translation and transcription. There's definitely, you've got a beautiful message to give forward. I wonder if I would be encouraged to work on the translation of this rather than a mere transcription, because your sole purpose is to express yourself. So if in the way that you're communicating, if it's feeling to you like you're just reading from the book, or that you're sort of, reading from the rule book, or you're just sort of, purporting data, if you're just sort of like regurgitating data in the way that you're communicating your message, then be encouraged to, with Mercury going back into Virgo, be encouraged to sit with it for a while. Be encouraged to work on your translation, and the reason I say this is because Leo is the sign of expression. That's what you're here for, is to self-express. So your color, your layer, your lens on this message, this communication, is essential. From your experience, from your heart, what are you translating to the other, rather than just transcribing from what you've read. Gosh, I hope I made that sense, because we've run out of sand. Do let me know. Thank you for being here with me, Leo. I love you very much. I'll be back with you in 2 weeks for the full moon in Aries, which will be a lovely moment of release again for us, right before eclipse season, I might add. Do head over to umaruby.com. Do head to the readings page and do book yourself a birth chart reading. I'm on a roll, and they're really coming out in such a beautiful form. And I'm very proud of the work that I get to experience in collaboration with those that I read for. So until then, I'll speak to you soon, Leo. Take care.